Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live. Yes, all the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Guys, I am super excited about tonight. I am doing something that I have not ever done before, and that is have two candidates who are opposing each other in essentially a primary race, but in this case, it is the Indiana Democratic Convention race, and I have them both on at the same time. Not the same time. I got them one and then the other. This is not going to be a debate. As I mentioned before, this is about giving you information, getting you the information you need about these candidates, especially if you are a delegate going to the convention on July 13th. I think it's important for you to hear from these candidates. It's not about putting anybody in an uncomfortable position. It's about giving you information. Okay. So let me tell you what's going to happen tonight. Each candidate will come on by themselves and they'll have a conversation with me. I have, for the first time ever, some preset questions that I am going to ask each of our candidates. That way, you have something to compare. I have a tendency to go off in a different space in my brain, especially when people say something amazing. But I wanted to make sure I was consistent and I was being as fair as possible. So they are both going to be asked the same questions. OK, now, obviously, the person who comes on second may have a slight advantage. And you know, I apologize for that. I don't know how else to do it other than to lock them in a closet and tell them they can't have no internet. I don't know how else to do that, but this is a way for them to be as honest and as clear as they possibly can about who they are. So thank you for joining us. If you are on YouTube Live, welcome. Facebook, welcome. And of course, if you miss it live, you can always catch it on YouTube and on Spotify, iTunes, and wherever you receive and get your podcast. All right. So I want to get this party started. I'm super excited. First up, who's the first guest? Yes, it is Destiny Wells. Destiny Wells. This is the second time Destiny has been on the show. Destiny, how are you doing today?
I think it's third, Dana.
Third? Is it? It is the third. Wow.
We did one with Christina. I remembered when I turned my camera on, had a little bit of PTSD because that was the night my little one fell down the stairs and my husband was texting me as we were on our call.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome, frequent flyer.
Hi, happy to be here.
Good. I'm glad to be here. So like I said, I have a set of questions for both you and your opponent. So let us begin. First question. Share your detailed bio of your educational and professional experience.
Okay, great. I am from Martinsville, Indiana, and I went to Indiana University for my undergrad in political science. I had plans to be a Florida Gator cheerleader, and I got hurt, and so I ended up going into the Army, and that is how I ended up wearing so many hats at this point in my life. I guess it was a blessing in disguise, arguably. So I went to Indiana University. I worked for the military for a couple of years in recruiting. I have been putting this recruiting hat on all the time, trying to get delegates to convention. And then I went to law school in Texas, a hotbed of all the far right issues that we've been seeing. And basically most of the bad ideas start in Texas, and then Indiana closely follows. So I have my friends in the legal community down there and can kind of get a preview of stuff before it takes off here back in Indiana. I did that for 3 years. I moved to Germany. I served in the military continually. And then I decided I would come back home. I got barred in Indiana and I started a small practice in Martinsville in my hometown. And that was a great opportunity for me because it allowed me to see the underbelly of my community that I didn't get to see in my formative years through high school, through 18, right? I started to see how we were dealing with education issues, homeless issues, drug abuse. And that year was so important to me. I then went and I mobilized in for another job in the military, you know, involuntary in support of what was going on in the Middle East and Afghanistan. I came back, I practiced law a little more. I again got deployed to Afghanistan, and I found myself there 2 weeks before the 2016 election. So I flew in with Barack Obama and I flew out with Donald Trump. And that was enough for me to know that I needed to start getting involved in politics too, that the uniform was not going to be enough. I came back, worked as a deputy attorney general for Curtis Hill, started to get involved with politics. I believe around that time I met you, Dana. And then I ended up getting appointed as a deputy chair in the state party by Mike Schmoll. And I ended up running for statewide office in 22. When I worked in the AG's office, I did civil litigation. And that is the majority of what the AG's office does. It really doesn't do much prosecution, but for very, very small, like Medicaid fraud. And so from there, I ended up coming off the 22 election, losing a lot of sleep, trying to figure out how Indiana wins, right? 23, spent down that campaign fund, making sure I invested in 23 races. We saw a lot of great success in 23, and then was approached to run for AG. And when I really looked at the race and saw the landscape, we said, let's not put this plane down. We're still in the air, and here we are. I will mention very shortly about the University of Texas. Why Texas? Texas is one of the best state schools in the nation. It was very competitive, and I felt like it really made me turn out to be a better attorney.
Wow, that is extensive, man. First of all, thank you for your service. I know that sometimes can sound a little trite, but I'm a chicken. So I appreciate you willing to put on a uniform, because I don't even like mud. So there's no way I could go in the service.
Well, and I appreciate it, Dan, because, you know, people, there's you have to educate on what the military does in the reserve component, right? Some people think, like you said, you're just rolling around in the dirt. But the bottom line is that the military is the largest organization, government organization really on the face of the planet that does what it does. And so I have been a huge benefactor in its training, right? We study organizational leadership, organizational management, and the AG's office is an organizational divisional organization, just like the military. So all this training that I've had with these hats I talk about, military hat, lawyer hat, and then just my emotional hat of being a parent and a mother and wife, those are all coming together and it has assured me that this is the moment for me. Okay, so I feel kind of bad because I feel like you answered my second question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You both ran for Secretary of State and unfortunately came up short. Tell us why you have decided to make another statewide run. Well, no, I have plenty to talk about that, so don't worry, right? So what makes 22 different from 24? Because these are the questions I asked myself when I was asked to run. Do we want to do this again? How is it different? And is it does it have a path to victory? And I will tell you that it does. So some things that make it different. And then, but let me say, we finished 5 points in front of the general ballot. What does that mean? We finished 5 points ahead of our Democratic counterparts on the statewide ticket. So that was great. We raised almost $1 million, and we know where we spend, we win. We also have the latest data, right? We know where straight ticket is in the state and where we need to target to be able to get the best return on investment. So there's that. But then how is it also different? Well, one, it's a presidential, right? I ran in 22 on Indiana, not a red state, not a blue state, a purple state with a voter turnout problem. Obviously, we ended up last in voter turnout again in the nation. And so this year with the presidential, we are looking at going to be a higher voter turnout. And then when it comes race to race, apples to apples, in 22, when we were running for secretary, and I was having conversations with National, trying to bring in extra resources, right? Because that's so important in Indiana to get outside funding, because a lot of our donors feel tapped in Indiana. It was like a move the goalpost, because there were over, I think, 25 seats up for secretary. It was very saturated. And there was that theme of, are we stealing elections, right? So we had Doug Mastriano out in Pennsylvania, stuff kicking off in Arizona. And then we were over in Indiana, like, hey, look at us. I know you don't know who Diego is, but let me tell you. And so that was really hard. So when I reapproached the national organization this year, it was a different one. It was Democratic AGs Association. And we have been working with them since January. And I went out and I visited 3 weeks ago, and I have great news. So there are only 10 states up for AG in 2024.
Okay.
That's awesome, right?
Right.
There are 5 Democratic states and 5 Republican states. Of the Democratic states, 2 states are very important to them, Pennsylvania and North Carolina. Those are hard states anyway, but their incumbents aren't running for a re-election. On the Republican side, they will be wanting to spend their money, right, to flip the seat. So they were looking at 3 states. Then they were looking at 2 states. One being us and the other being Montana.
Okay.
And since we're on the air, I am going to abide by what I promised them, and I'm not going to give you more details, but I promise you, come time for the convention, we're going to have awesome news about where they're looking to put their resources. I'll give you one hint. Everybody dislikes Todd Rokita.
Hey, that's what's up. Okay. So on your website, I have 2 website questions, one for you and one for Beth. You say on your website, trusted to preserve Hoosiers' freedom, security, and opportunity. What does that mean?
Well, these are the ethos that I've been groomed. I've lived by, right, since 19 in my service to country. And like I said, I didn't feel after I had been in theater under Donald Trump that those ethos were being abided by back in our government, in our federal government and state government. And so when I started to get involved, I did see that at play. So what we're talking about is not abusing the Attorney General's office for partisan gain. And we have largely been seeing that out of Todd Rokita. One of our first platform planks is medical privacy. Why is it medical privacy? Well, it's because Todd has used the office to abuse people's privacy in their doctor's offices. And this has allowed for people to be scared to seek medical care, especially abortion care, providers to not want to practice in the state of Indiana, especially abortion care providers, and then other facets too of our life, like trans care, where children are now having to be taken by their parents out of state, right, to get some of the care they need. And so we are going to make sure that we are doing the things that we were given authority to do, statutory latitude, right? These come out of statutes and constitutional. And that is not using the office to scare people. There is an ability for the AG's office. It's kind of like a quasi subpoena power over other agencies. Todd has used that with the Department of Health to ask for women's personal medical data, right? So termination of pregnancy reports. We've seen this at play a lot in the courts and litigation. And so what we have now, and this has been seconded by the public access counselor, Luke Britt, is that we have so few abortions in Indiana that with that information from the TPRs, you can glean what is going on, right? If maybe you have, like, let's say a rape victim in a county up north who's underage, you would be able to see that and then be able to pick out who that person is if you sat in the courtroom for long enough. There's different ways to do that. And so we are on board with the position of Luke Britt that the AG's office does not need TPRs, and on the same position of the Department of Health. Again, Department of Health is a client, right? Agency clients for the AG, also Consumer Protection is our general electorate, and people, we can talk about that later. But one good example I'll end on so we can move to the next question is there was a press conference a month ago where Todd Rokita was meeting with Representative Andy Zay in Northeast Indiana, and he called on the public to sue the Indiana Department of Health. That is actually unethical. That is against our rules of professional conduct as attorneys. You do not ask people to sue your client, right?
Right.
So again, in the same thread of your question, Dana, these are the things that we are wanting to do to make sure that we are upholding everybody's personal liberty, is that the chief legal officer in the state is playing by the rules and doing the business that his office has been chartered to do.
I love it. Okay. So we're going to switch gears. This is the Democratic convention. So this next question, again, I feel like you've answered it, but I'm going to ask it because I'm going to ask it of your opponent. Tell us what you have been doing for the past few election cycles to assist Democratic candidates in Indiana.
This is my favorite part, right? So I was the successor, I believe, Dana, of your position on State Central Committee, was I not?
I do believe you were.
I do believe. So every iteration of party chair gets to appoint their deputy chairs. And like I said before, I had reached out to Mike Schmull in the beginning of his term because I wanted to help more. And so this position was given to me, and we were able to do coalition building. So it was deputy chair of coalitions and expansion. How I looked at it is I tried to put my strategy hat on as an Army soldier. In fact, the women will tell you that like my plan was very written out like a military plan. And what we were going to do, and that was, make sure that we're coalition building women, because I knew that, and this is part of why I'm qualified to be Attorney General, is because at the time, 2021, so I think Tom McDermott had just said he was going to run. I was showing this slide deck around to women all over Indiana saying, hey, there's this case called Dobbs, and Roe is on the chopping block. We need to start coalition building. And I told Tom, hey, it's going to be the majority of what you talk about in 22. And it was. And so, but I will say fairly, and I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Dana, but I think these are all headwinds we've come against in the party, is when you're wanting to do things new, when you're wanting to bring new people in, it makes some people a little nervous, right?
Baby.
So just a little.
A whole lot.
Okay, a whole lot of. So I have continued to go to bat for the last 3 years. I have never backed down. It's gotten me maybe a little bit of a reputation for being aggressive, but I think some of us have to do it. And I'm going to continue to do it. Like I said, after we spent down that money in 22, and I was super proud to help down ballot, right? We flipped areas. I flipped Tippecanoe County. We now have a Democratic mayor there. Kept St. Joe County. Flipped Carmel. We saw Carmel's ballot full, right, during the municipals, made headway in Terre Haute. And then, so what we saw in 23, I spent the rest of my money down on races like my friend Brandon Sackbun, right, an Army Ranger, Stephanie Terry down in Evansville, and another council, African-American woman council member in Vigo County, and just all over, we picked out those races. And so even though I didn't win, I feel like a winner because we invested in them. Now we have 8 African-American mayors throughout Indiana, and I believe 4 of those are women, right? So these are the successes that keep me going. And that's what I want to do in 24. I want to make sure that I'm running the strongest race. I built this race for a general election when we launched in November. We have 5 people on the team, headquarters. We are built out for a general election race, pollster, all the stuff that you would have. We are chomping at the bit to go, because we know the better that we do, the more money that we raise, that helps those down ballot races. A lot of these folks are running for a second time. I have friends that I made all over Indiana who are on the ballot again. Some of them trying for those state houses, especially the 4 we're trying to flip. And we have been talking since we got off the ground and just are ready and raring to go.
I love it. I love that answer. All right, let's turn to the sitting Attorney General. My bad. Our current Attorney General, Todd Rokita, has faced disciplinary charges over comments he's made. He spent unnecessary funds visiting the Mexico border and has disparaged an OBGYN for saving the life of a 10-year-old rape survivor, along with many other problematic activities. How will you run the Attorney General's office differently?
We will run it professionally, right? I was asked the other day by press, and I said, we'll do things to the letter of the law, right? This is never supposed to be this complicated. Even when I worked in the office under Curtis Hill, the office had not become so partisan. That has been a movement that has started over the last 4 years, and it's called RAGA, the Republican AGs Association, of which Todd is a front man on.
Wow.
And so what they do is they cherry pick across the nation litigation that they want to enter that will do things like undermine equality, right? Women's rights, LGBTQ rights. Also, it will undermine executive authority so that they can get that power vested back with the states, right? So I say, hey, if it's a pipeline in Montana, Todd's on it. If it's climate policy in California, he is on it. If it's the border, he's physically there, right? So we will make sure that we disengage from that litigation pronto. Again, that's part of the work too with the Democratic AGs Association to make sure that we're moving with all the other Democratic AGs and pursuing cases within the latitude that we can to further what is the Democratic agenda. And again, that is things like just simple equality. And so that is something that we will focus on. Also, I said I work there. All of my friends have left. I ended up leaving too, right? And so the office has been gutted. And what we need to do is that recruiter hat I told you about when I first started. Like I said, this job just, I feel like I've been training for this job for a lifetime. And that is recruiting great attorneys to work on the line as deputies AG, right? And making sure that they feel like they're coming into an office that has a good culture and climate. Again, those things that have been fostered with me having served in the U.S. Army for 21 years. I understand how to set the culture in the office, how to deal with changing the climate. And we'll be doing those things. And like I said, I'm super excited. I know the office very well, and I have some great ideas too about how we can do better. Okay.
So once elected, what will be your first priority?
I keep anticipating all your questions. I've discussed this. Okay, twofold, right? So when I worked in the AG's office, I never saw Curtis. I saw him once, right? He's got his office over the State House. So first order of business is to immediately set up an office for the Attorney General with everybody else. There's about 180 employees there. It's in the government building on the 5th floor. So I'm going to make sure that I am there and I am seen and that I'm walking around and seeing how people are doing. The second part of that is we cannot do better until we start to heal the office that is there. I can try to top down push an agenda, but I need buy-in from the bottom up too. Right. Again, those Army things I've learned about. And so we are going to be recruiting hard to make sure that we are bringing people back from other agencies that left who loved the work they were doing there. I loved the work I was doing there. Even though I had a crazy docket of like over 100 cases, it was very fulfilling work. And we're going to make sure we rebuild the office so that we can then start to attack the agenda that we have in making sure that we are both the people's attorney and that, honestly, Dana, it's a technocratic office, right? So that if somebody walks in, it's not hitting them in the face if this is a Democratic AG, surely won't be a Republican one, but it's just that we are dang good attorneys doing great work, loving the work, and making sure that every day in that office is fulfilling for everyone around.
I like that answer. All right, now let's go into a couple of policy questions. Although cannabis is still not legal in Indiana, how aggressive will you as Attorney General go after county prosecutors who said they will not prosecute for small possession amounts?
Well, we're not going to go after them at all, right? I mean, it's not within the latitude of our office. We're going to make sure that to the extent that county prosecutors are doing what's best for their communities, that they're allowed to do so. Obviously, Todd Rokita's had his eyes on Ryan Mears as the prosecutor for Marion County, but it's not just Ryan. It's other counties across Indiana that are blue counties, like Lake County, like Vanderburgh, also like Tippecanoe. So it's just not cannabis, right? He sent out a letter a couple of weeks ago while I was in D.C. saying that he was going to go after what he perceives to be sanctuary cities.
Gary and Lake in East Chicago, yeah.
Yes, and we made a statement immediately that local control should be local control. It shouldn't be local control unless it's a blue city, right? And so communities know what is best for them. Prosecutor Mears knows what's best for his office and the resources that he has available, right? That is a huge burden on that office to have to go chase down prosecutions around marijuana when the resources aren't there. And I'm going to trust those prosecutors to make those calls.
I like that. I like that. All right. Next question. AG Todd Rokita has joined 14 other states in filing a lawsuit that challenges a rule from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that aimed to protect gay and transgender people from health discrimination. How do you feel about this lawsuit? And as AG, will you continue to have Indiana in this lawsuit?
Okay, no, right? So back to my previous answer on that specific topic, we will exit those lawsuits. And we have discussed this question at length, even in the last couple of days, when it comes to protected classes. And so Indiana has protected classes, and we want to make sure that those are being upheld. However, what has happened since 2019, I believe it was 2019, when the legislature really just defanged our hate crimes statute that we had. They took out the categories, right? So Indiana does not have comprehensive hate crimes legislation. No. We are one of the few states left even on the list with the ADL that we are absent of it. And we've seen other states that, people say, oh, they're so far behind us that even they've gotten off the list because they've done the right thing. Now, the AG's office can't set policy, right? We advise, but we will be advising the legislature from a fact-based place, just like today. Again, Todd Rokita put out a message that capital punishment, that execution was a deterrent for other heinous crimes. That's actually not true. There is data by the federal government and many other organizations that it has not been proven to be a deterrent. So we are going to make sure, like I said, that we are advising the legislature from a fact-based place and that we are proponents of comprehensive hate crime legislation.
I love it. I love it. All right. Number 8. We're on the 8th question already. The Indianapolis Star reports, actually it's the 9th because I threw one in and I didn't number it. But anyway, the Indianapolis Star reports that Rokita requires all employees in the Attorney General's office to sign non-disclosure agreements. And I almost feel like you answered this question as well. The agreements cover both Rokita's private life and his public performance as an elected official. Those employees can find themselves having to cough up $25,000 if they violate the agreement. If elected, would you continue to require employees of your office to sign NDAs?
No, it's completely antithetical to open and transparent government, right? I mean, if you need any confidentiality in the AG's office, there's attorney-client privilege. It's already there. Everything else, you're just hiding from the public. And so when he did that, when he first came on, I actually was very vocal. And you can go back. It's all in the tweets. And then I was also corresponding with some journalists, making sure that they had all the information they needed on the legalities of it and how wrong it was. In fact, I don't even believe that it would stand up in the court of law. We have not seen government NDAs like this litigated within our jurisdiction because Todd was one of the first people to do it. And in fact, not to get too technical here, but as an NDA, the first version was for pot. It was awful. It would never hold up in a court of law, even if it was legal to make them sign it, because he had it written so broadly that you could be an employee and say, hey, he ate a cheeseburger for lunch, and that would possibly be protected information. They went back and they tweaked it. They tried to make it a little better, but I have not heard of that being enforced yet. It's like many things that Todd does. It is just a scare tactic to keep everybody under his thumb.
I love it. I love it. All right. All right. Those have been great answers. All right. The next question. Okay. As Democrats, we have an uphill battle to win elections statewide and in the General Assembly. If you are not selected as the candidate for the general election in November, what will you do to help this year's ticket?
Oh, I'm going to go to places where I know that I have name recognition, where I can help. So I have some friends running in Hamilton County, right? So Josh Lowry is up that way,
Yeah, I
Matt
love Josh.
McNally, Victoria, like all my friends. There's just such a great crop of legislators and candidates that are around my age that, we hang out when we can. I was a deputy AG with Josh Lowry. I try not to tell people we were also both cheerleaders together at Martinsville High School.
I love that.
But I will be going to those places where I know that I can help, because I have grown my reputation there. And then also I'm still the deputy chair for coalitions and expansion, right? So I will be able to travel around the state for the party, and being able to help in that regard. And I'll just keep at it. Like I said, I'm not little annoying Energizer Bunny who's pink and hits the drum. I just keep going. So I don't plan on stopping regardless of the outcome.
I love it. I love it. Now, I got this question from someone else. They wanted to know if I could ask this question. As Democrats, we are the big tent, and we should uplift and support each other. Although you and Beth are competing for delegate votes, what is one positive thing you can say about your Democratic convention opponent?
I will say that having been challenged by Beth and Beth's background has made me the best candidate I can be, because I could not be unprepared, right? If it was just going to be me and Todd, I was going to probably get a little complacent, but the competition has kept me on my toes. And it's also made me try a lot harder in Marion County, because Beth has a very storied reputation of being a servant leader in Marion County. And I also live here. I always say that Marion County creates the most noise. and living in that for the last 5-6 months has been very interesting. So with that, I think it made both Beth and I competing against each other has made us better.
I love it. Now, having said some nice things about your opponent, what sets you apart?
What sets us apart is that I have been involved for the last 3 years. Now, I know Beth has been involved previously. But when we talk about how we win, I feel that I know I am much more oriented on winning. I built this as a general election team. Like I said, immediately I knew I needed to fundraise. I make sure that I am all across the state. I have been traveling for 7 months to make sure that everybody sees me and feels acknowledged. And I have a plan on how to win against Todd Rokita, and I will go to the mat with Todd. And I think that people know by this time I am a bit feisty, right? Sometimes I just got to make sure that I tame it down a little.
I like
so like
it.
I said, we're ready to sprint on July 14th. We are planning on a fundraising blitz starting the evening of July 13th, and we're just rearing to go.
I love it. All right. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds, and I'm going to get my little trusty phone out here. I'm going to give you 90 seconds, excuse me, to make a closing statement.
Great.
Hold on a second. I'm going to get my minutes here. I'm going to do
my campaign manager has them over here too.
Okay, excellent. On your mark,
Kristen.
Set, go. 90 seconds.
Okay, hey, look, I know there are a lot of people on this call who are going to be at convention because I've called you and you've said, Destiny, I'm going to listen in on Dana Black's show before I make a decision. So here I am to tell you that I am going to make sure that we take it to the mat with Todd in November. And we are going to run on getting Todd out of the doctor's offices, out of classrooms, because he loves to make sure that he uses our children against us, which is just totally cruel, and that we are going to ultimately get him out of the one place where he can't cause any more trouble, and that's making sure that we get him out of the State House. I have been traveling across Indiana, and we are getting such a great response from both Republicans and Democrats. I have a profile that makes me great in rural Indiana, right? I'm a farmer's daughter. I've done the military. I can speak across the aisle, but at the end of the day, I am still and always will be progressive and can drive out the base. And that is what we will be doing when we finish convention. So please, if you have any questions, contact me, I'll do this. It doesn't matter, Dana. 765-341-0281, destiny@wellsforindiana.com. And make sure that you keep me honest, and I will be ready to talk to you.
I love it. And you did it in less than 90 seconds. Good job. Good job. Destiny, thank you so much for joining me today. You gave us a lot of things to think about. I'm excited for July 13th. I still haven't made up my mind yet, so we'll see. We'll see. And I love the excitement that you bring. Excuse me. So thank you so much for tuning in, joining me today. I am going to go ahead and play my ads. I'm going to switch out the logos and the contestants, and we'll bring on our next AG candidate. All right. Thanks, Destiny.
Headed to the Floyd County dinner. Bye.
Democrats, are you looking for an affordable digital content creation solution? Then look no further than Black Pearl IT Solutions and Black Pearl Studios. Indiana's own Dana Black is providing many of the communication wraparound services any Democratic organization needs. No matter the size of the budget, Indiana's own and Black Pearl Studios have you covered. Just scan the QR code or visit www.blackpearl-its.com. Today's show is brought to you by Bohm's Unique Boutique. Click on the QR code. And for all Turn Left listeners, you can get a 10% discount on your order by using the code Democrat. Be sure to visit www.bohmsuniqueboutique.com. All right. Let me change out the logos. Our next guest tonight, she's a first-timer on Turn Left, but she is not new to Indiana's own, and she is not new to Marion County. Y'all give it up for our second Attorney General candidate, Miss Beth White. Beth, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good, Dana. Thank you so much. I'm excited about being with you tonight.
I love it. Okay, just like I told Destiny, I have a set of questions. I am going to ask both of you the same questions because my brain is scattered. I will forget what I ask if I did not write it down, and I want to make sure that I am as fair as possible. You ready to go?
I sure am.
All right. Number one, share your detailed bio of your educational and professional experience.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, thanks, Dana, for the opportunity, and to everyone listening and potentially watching. I'm just really glad to be here. I have been a lawyer for more than 30 years. And in that time, I have really dedicated myself to public service. I grew up in Bloomington. Went to IU undergrad, go Hoosiers, had a great time. Went out to Georgetown for law school in Washington. Along the way, I did an internship both in the legislature and in Congress in Washington. And then came back here to practice law and started at a firm, realized really soon that that was not for me, that public service was really where I belong. So I was a criminal prosecutor. I was chief legal counsel of the DCS office, the Division of Child Services, where I worked to help victims of abuse and neglect, children in particular in Marion County. I went from there to work for the Frank O'Bannon administration as the chief legal counsel of the Office of Workforce Development. So I spent 3 years doing that, and just really was so privileged to know Frank and Judy O'Bannon, and to work alongside Frank in that time. And then Bart Peterson was elected mayor in Indianapolis, and he asked me to come and be on his team, which I did. And I spent 7 years working for the city. My first assignment was the Corporation Counsel's office, and I was the deputy. So I put the office together. I did all the hiring, legislative work, all the supervision of the lawyers, did the council relations, all of the kind of management of the office, like a law firm. Essentially, there were, I think, 60 some lawyers. So that was a great opportunity. I love Bart Peterson. We had a great run there. I was elected clerk in 2006, reelected in 10. And during the time that I had the privilege of serving the people of Marion County as their elected clerk, I did 14 elections, which is more than any clerk in the history of Indiana. I did expanded voting opportunities, did a high school curriculum for voting, did all kinds of public service and other ways to make voting more accessible. Worked in the legislature a lot on behalf of the Clerks Association. And then I did the first same gender wedding in the history of Indiana in the summer of 14. The federal court decision came down. We did 650 weddings in 3 days.
Wow.
It was a wonderful thing. It was an accident of history that I was there, but it was an opportunity for me to make real the opportunity for marriage equality in Indiana. So one thing Destiny and I share, which is that we both ran for Secretary of State, which I did unsuccessfully. So then I went to work for Mayor Hogsett. Ran the not-for-profit organization called the Greater Indianapolis Progress Committee, which brought the private sector into partnership with the mayor. Learned a ton about the business community, about higher ed, and how our business and not-for-profit sector works in partnership with the city. So for the last 2.5 years, my assignment has been the Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault and Human Trafficking, which is a Department of Justice funded and sanctioned statewide organization. Our mission is to train, assist, and advocate on behalf of victims of sexual violence. And in that role, I have traveled the state talking to prosecutors, police officers, mental health, and other kinds of professionals and service providers to find out how we can better serve victims. And so I've done that work, as I said, for about 2.5 years. It is a great privilege to serve people who are vulnerable and who've experienced that kind of trauma. One last thing, and it's a long bio, Dana, because I'm old.
It's okay.
But I love it. All of it's been just a great privilege. I was very active in the abortion debate in the summer of 22. I was at the coalition and became engaged immediately in the legislature to advocate for reproductive rights for victims of rape and incest. And as we all know, that session was absolutely terrible. And our restrictive abortion law is an absolute shameful situation. We were able to get a exception for rape and incest in Indiana, but it is not long enough. It does not serve the victims of sexual violence in the way that it should. I was really, gratified to be a part of that, because what I saw firsthand is the way that our legislature is not listening to women in Indiana. And one of the things that motivates me, which is maybe one of your next questions, but I am motivated by the need for us to do better on behalf of victims and women and pretty much everybody else in Indiana.
I love it. I love it. Okay, the next question. And again, we already knew that you might have a slight advantage because I couldn't lock you away in a closet with no internet while I was interviewing Destiny. So
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, you're good. So the next question is, you both ran for Secretary of State and unfortunately came up short. Tell us why you have decided to make another statewide run.
Yeah. So I am motivated really by some anger, a lot of anger, actually, not just a little, and the sort of frustration that many of us feel about the way in which the state in particular is not listening to us. And the Secretary of State's office was a great opportunity for me because I had been clerk and I'd been fighting for the rights of voters and making sure that that's felt like the next step. Now I am really motivated by Todd Rokita's just terrible record on behalf of the people of Indiana. I cannot sit by and watch what is happening in the State House about reproductive rights and also the way that Todd Rokita is treating vulnerable people. Cannot sit by and let it go on anymore without taking action. And I just think that the Attorney General's office is an opportunity for us because Todd Rokita is so extreme. He is too extreme for Indiana. And I want to be the Attorney General because we deserve better than that.
I love it. Okay, so I had two questions that were from your website. So obviously Destiny's was specific to her site. Yours is specific to yours. Your website says, fighting to protect Hoosier families, integrity, experience, no nonsense. What does that mean?
Yeah, so first, integrity. I like to say that this is who I am. I have, as I said, dedicated my 30+ year career to public service, doing the right things for the right reasons, telling the truth no matter what, fighting for people, giving voice to people without a voice, fighting for the marginalized. This is what my career has been about. And I feel like the integrity of that is something that is really lacking in the Attorney General's office right now. Experience. I just went through the long list of my elected and appointed experience. state chief counsel of 2 state agencies, elected office, appointed office, working for 2 mayors at the local level, engaging really actively in the legislature, both as clerk on behalf of voters and also now, on behalf of victims in the abortion debate, but other times too. So my experience and ready to lead day one is what I say, because, the Attorney General's office is a big office. It's a big job. And it really does, I think, require a person who has had experience supervising big staff, millions of dollars in budgets, understanding the difference between state government at the executive level, the legislative level, the judicial level. There are all kinds of nuances to all of that. And I really feel like I've had the experience to do that. The final thing about no nonsense is just that Todd Rokita has spent his time and our money on fights that are not fights that benefit all of us. He has signed on to these ridiculous national letters and lawsuits. And he even signed on to that silly letter to the judge in the Trump criminal case. Stay in your lane, Todd Rokita. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you not spending your time, energy, and our tax dollars on things that matter to us? And I'm sick of it. It's nonsense. And so the third sort of level of my platform, this no nonsense, is just that we've got to get back to core principles in the Attorney General's office.
I love it. All right. Now, this is a party question. This is obviously a Democratic convention. Tell us what you've been doing for the past few election cycles to assist Democratic candidates in Indiana.
Yeah, I have I have always been helping Democrat candidates. If you look at my checkbook, which I still write checks. I'm still old, although I'm using ActBlue a lot. You can look at my ActBlue profile. Let's say that instead. Yes. because
Click
we
the
know
links.
ActBlue.
They're right there. Both
there
Destiny and Beth are right there. And if you can't decide, I have a joint link and we'll split the funds. That's how we'll do it.
Yeah, how about that? Have money to everybody. I give a lot of money to Democrat candidates. I always have. And I have, just for decades have been a supporter and a giver. I pay a lot of attention, of course, to Marion County politics. I was an elected office holder for 8 years in Marion County. I have been a member of Capitol Club repeatedly. I give money to the party. I'm one of those rare people that believes, first of all, pay your taxes without complaint, because it is the cost of civilization, right? We have a government. It's not perfect, but it is a government that's working, and you should pay your taxes, pay your fair share. I also give money to the party repeatedly. I give money to the state party. I give money to the local parties. I give money to local candidates, people running for everything from the city council last year to, of course, working for Mayor Hogsett was helpful to Mayor Hogsett, all 3 times that he's run, right? Because he's now a third-term mayor, which, as you know, in Indiana, we allow what's called mayors for life. I have helped every candidate who has run for governor in the last 25 years. I helped Jonathan Weinsappel when he ran for this very office 4 years ago, not only giving him money, but, helping talk with him and campaign with him. I help legislative candidates. You can ask any of them. And I have spent a lot of time working in that way. I believe in the 2-party system. The other thing that I do that I didn't mention in my bio when I was describing that is I teach at the university level. I teach a class at IU Indianapolis, and I've done that for over 20 years. And even though that's not directly related to helping the party, I talk a lot to young people at the university level about their government and their communities and how they have got to engage. And so I've been teaching one class a semester for, I think, 22 years. And so I believe that building the party, of course, talking with young people, it's really important. And so I am active on the IU Indianapolis College campus on behalf of not specifically the Democratic Party, but anybody who listens to me teach for a few hours knows where I stand. But I'm nonpartisan in the classroom.
Yes.
Nonpartisan, but I also believe in education being about responsibility to our democracy. Really, really important. And so I've been involved in that way as well.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about Todd Rokita. Oh, Toddy boy.
Okay.
Our current Attorney General, Todd Rokita, has faced disciplinary charges over comments he's made, spent unnecessary funds visiting the Mexico border, and is disparaging OBGYN for saving the life of a 10-year-old rape survivor, along with many other problematic activities. How differently will you run the Attorney General's office?
Well, that's kind of an easy one. So thank you for that softball. Well, 100%, 180-degree difference, right? I've already talked about the work I do on behalf of victims of sexual violence. When that situation arose, Dr. Bernard, that wonderful clinician in Indiana, provided that essential healthcare abortion services to a 10-year-old child. At the coalition, we were aware of what was happening, working with the Ohio Coalition about all of that. So I wasn't directly involved in the case. It's shameful the way Dr. Bernard was treated, and there is no excuse for it. There is the way in which Todd Rokita has used his power. And he has a great amount of power, right? The highest law enforcement officer in the state of Indiana, right? The highest lawyer. He's used his power in really, really destructive and shameful ways. And I think that what happened to Dr. Bernard is just one example, but a very important example. She was providing perfectly legal health care to a child. Mm-hmm. And the notion that he would try to take her license away is ridiculous. And there's no excuse for it. So the first thing to say is I would never weaponize the Attorney General's office against anyone acting in a completely and perfectly legal way. Never been disciplined by the Supreme Court Disciplinary Commission in my more than 30 years as a lawyer. Let me take a tangent quickly about this
Absolutely.
Situation with Dr. Bernard. I have been working on research. There's an amount of really great research out from the School of Medicine in Indiana. And they are talking a lot about the inability to recruit and retain clinicians in Indiana, OBGYNs specifically, but there are others too who are not going to come here and practice medicine because what Todd Rokita did to Dr. Bernard. And that's going to hurt all of us. Mm-hmm. I understand people who might be listening and say, look, I'm never going to have an abortion. I'm never going to need Dr. Bernard's services. Okay, that's fine. But when doctors see what happened and they are choosing not to practice medicine in this state, we all lose. And this is happening. We have data. We have very specific trends over the course of time at the School of Medicine. The other thing to note is that there are almost a third of the counties in Indiana where you cannot deliver a baby. There is no place to deliver a baby. And that is just terrifying. We talk about the brain drain. We talk about young people getting their education here at our excellent universities and then leaving. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you this, young women and people who want to raise their families will not live in a community where you don't have access to good care. Right. And I've had a baby and, you think everything's going to be fine until it's not. And if you are an hour and a half from an emergency room or a NICU, it's an absolute disaster. And there is no excuse for the way Todd Rokita behaved, and it is going to impact all of us in Indiana.
Wow. Okay. Now you're elected. What will be your first priority?
The first thing we have got to do is get that office back in some sort of shape to be serving Hoosiers. Lawyers have left in droves. They don't want to work for Todd Rokita. He's a terrible boss, by the way. I have witnessed him yelling at his staff.
What?
I have supervised. I have supervised hundreds of people in my career. I'm not exaggerating. The clerk's office had 120 full-time equivalents. We had 300 or more during election time. I have supervised many, many people. I'm not a yeller. I treat people with respect. We've got to hire good and smart young people, lawyers, but others too, professionals, investigators. We have to treat them with respect. We have to get that office back to some sense that it is serving Hoosiers. That is number one. Number two, focus on consumer protection. The Attorney General's office is supposed to be protecting seniors from fraud and other kinds of abuse, protecting young people from crime and cybersecurity, working in cooperation with prosecutors all around the state, which I, by the way, have done on behalf of sexual violence victims. And he's not doing it. He's just not doing it. And we've got to get back, as I said, core mission, consumer protection, getting some lawyers working in that office who are working on behalf of the people of Indiana.
I love it. All right, let's talk about a couple of policy things.
Okay.
Although cannabis is still not legal in Indiana, how aggressive will you be as Attorney General? Will you go after county prosecutors who said they will not prosecute for small possession amounts? Allow me to read that again. Although cannabis is still not legal in Indiana, how aggressive will you as Attorney General go after county prosecutors who said they will not prosecute for small possession amounts?
I will not. aggressively or otherwise. Here is my long sort of scholarly answer, and I hope your eyes don't start to glaze over. I believe in the political process that we have in the state of Indiana. Prosecutors are elected in their communities. They have very, very broad discretion. I was a deputy prosecutor for 3 years. I worked for Jeff Modisette, who was a prosecutor in Marion County. I did that work. I understand that work. The people of the community that elected that prosecutor have one remedy, and that's the ballot box. The attorney general should not come in and circumvent the will of the people who elected that prosecutor, because he has a different, or she has a different philosophy. I believe that the decision to prosecute cannabis or anything else at the local level belongs with the local prosecutor, and I would not interfere with that particular discretion.
I love it. Okay, this might be another softball for you. AG Todd Rokita has joined 14 other states in filing a lawsuit that challenges a rule from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that aims to protect gay and transgender people from health discrimination. How do you feel about the lawsuit? And as AG, will you continue to have Indiana in this lawsuit?
First of all, I'm going to answer the last question first. No, we will pull out of that lawsuit. It's ridiculous. This is Title IX. In my work at the coalition, we work closely with Title IX. The coalition, we as Indiana are the part of a network of coalitions across the country. Again, Department of Justice sanctions us and funds us to do this work. We were able to comment. We've been working closely with our partners in Washington. The Title IX rules that were just released, that Todd Rokita has decided shouldn't be implemented, did exactly what you said, which is protect everyone, transgendered, gay, any person, male, female, non-binary, from sexual violence on both college and high school campuses, by the way. It's K-12 as well as college. It is appalling to me that our Attorney General has decided that's not important. And he has confused the issue. I gave a lunch speech a couple of days ago to a group of people who were just grabbed all over me about men, transgendered men and women's sports. That's not what this is about. Nope. And that is this dog whistle that is being used by the Republicans to just confuse the issue. I know what the issue is because I am working in that space and have been in the coalition. And we are it's ridiculous what he's done. And the worst thing about it, it's not just a political fight. It is a fight to make sure people get services that they need and they're not discriminated against on their college campuses or in their high schools. I feel so strongly about this that we're disgusted. When I say we, the network of coalitions all around the country have watched attorneys general, not everyone, of course, but shamefully ours, undermine these rules that are so important. And we can't sit by and let it go without saying what's true, which is it's hurting people. It is hurting victims of sexual violence, and we have to speak up against it.
Man, you're killing it. You're killing it. The Indianapolis Star reports that Todd Rokita requires all employees in the Attorney General's office to sign non-disclosure agreements. The agreements cover both Rokita's private life and his public performance as an elected official. Those employees can find themselves having to cough up $25,000 if they violate the agreement. If elected, would you continue to require employees of your office to sign NDAs?
Good Lord, no. That's just crazy talk. That's absolute crazy talk. Again, I've been in charge of 2 not-for-profits, 2 state agency legal departments. I was deputy corporation counsel of the city. I've never in my 30 plus year career asked anybody to do such a silly thing. Here's what you do instead. You act like a professional and a decent human being. You treat people with respect. You treat your employees the way you would want to be treated. You don't expect them to do anything you wouldn't be willing to do. And you don't need an NDA. It's just crazy. Come on now. That is just another example of the way Todd Rokita is not serving the people of India. That's a distraction. Mm-hmm. I'm going to hire smart, good lawyers. I'm going to treat them with respect. And then I'm going to ask them to do the people's business. And by the way, good luck finding anything anybody would talk about that I wouldn't want them to talk about me. I am very boring. I have spent my life in the public eye, both elected and appointed office. I've worked for governors and mayors, and I get an overdue library book, and it is a crisis in my house. It is just not a thing I worry about at all. And I just think that, I mean, no wonder nobody works there, right? Would you work there, Dana? No, me neither. And it's no surprise, really. It's just no surprise.
Wow. All right. I love those answers. Okay. We're almost there.
Hey, this is fun.
Good.
Don't hurry.
Yes, I love it. Okay. As Democrats, we have an uphill battle to win elections statewide and in our General Assembly. If you are not selected as the candidate for the general election in November, what will you do to help this year's ticket?
Yeah, I'll do what I always do, which is support good candidates, which we have all over the state of Indiana. We've got some great legislative candidates. And I mean, this is a place where, frankly, Destiny and I really agree. We've got to get ourselves out of the super minority. I was over in the legislature a lot as clerk. I'm over there a lot now. And it is absolutely demoralizing that they don't even have to talk to the Democrats. It's not a good way to make policy. So I think that getting out of the super minority has to be priority one, other than, becoming attorney general. And if I'm not the candidate, that is still essential. If I'm not the candidate, I will go back to the coalition. I took a leave of absence. I didn't quit because I love the work and it's really important. So having legislators who can have an impact is as important to me as it is anyone else. And I will really consider that important. The other thing that I've really had the opportunity to do is work with Jennifer McCormick and work with Valerie McCrae on the campaign trail. They are just really quality people. And we can't devolve into a discussion about the crazy town that's become the Republican ticket. But what I really want to say is that there's so much at stake. And I live here. I'm raising my child here. My 86-year-old mom is here. My family is all here. Well, except the grown nieces and nephews who can't live here because, the fact that their reproductive rights aren't being respected. I don't want Indiana to devolve into a terrible place to live. And I'll continue to fight like I always have to make this place better for everyone.
I love it. Okay. As Democrats, we are the big tent and we should uplift and support each other. Although you are both competing for delegate votes, what one positive thing can you say about your Democratic convention opponent?
Well, I actually have more than one. So first of all, I honor her military service. To hear her talk very eloquently about what it's meant to be in the military, I really respect that and I honor that. I think she is she has a tremendous story to tell. That's number one. Number two, she's just a hell of a campaigner. I'll say that. And I did get on the call a little early in an effort not to be late because being late is my thing, as you may know, Dana. So I'm trying not to be late. So I got on and I heard her say about how this competition has made us both better candidates. And I agree with that. She's really a good candidate. She is able to articulate extremely clearly and extremely persuasively the tenets of this race that we share, right? Todd's terrible. The people deserve better. I think there's policy-wise, it is pretty hard to find any difference between us. And she's just a hell of a campaigner.
I love it. Now, after having said such amazingly nice things about your opponent, what sets you apart?
Yeah, it really is the experience piece. I've talked about it already, but I think it cannot be understated that there are two pieces to this process. I think a lot about this because I've done it for so many years. There's the campaigning, which is the opportunity it's like a long job interview, right? That's a good analogy. I've heard people use it. You're just applying for a job, right? Your behavior, what you say, what you do, where you go, all of that is just part of this job interview. And when you get the job, you actually have to do the job.
Yeah.
And I've seen examples, and I'm not commenting on my opponent at all, but I have seen examples of people who love the fight as part of the campaign, but then you get in the office and it's not really a fit or you're not really prepared. And I think that experience, the ability to govern, to understand what has to be done. I have put together administrations. I took over the clerk's office from a Republican. It was not in very good shape. It's a big office, complicated, lots to do. I put an administration together that started working very quickly on behalf of the people of Marion County. I put a legal office together on behalf of Bart Peterson. I put a coalition together that I'm now serving. I understand what it means to get people to recruit people to come and be a part of a team, to inspire them to do the work that needs to be done, to manage not just the office, but also the relationships, right? Legislative relationships. I've worked in this legislature for a very, very long time. Now, I won't say that the leadership of the legislature and I agree about much of anything, but I can go talk to them. I have gone and talked to them on behalf of numerous different causes and issues in my professional life. I have managed millions and millions of dollars in budgets. I am doing it right now, by the way. The coalition is a federally funded organization. Our budget's just complicated, and we have a very it's a kind of a significant complement of funding that comes to us. I am not only capable of doing those things, I have done those things. I think I'm a pretty good campaigner, but I also am ready to be the Attorney General. And that, I think, is something that you just can't learn on the job. You have to have a proven track record. And I think that I do.
All right. All right. That was it. You survived. You made it. And
it wasn't even painful at all.
Well, and see what people, if you've watched the show, I have a tendency to I like to have organic conversations. So the fact that I've done this for the first time, written down questions and asked the same question and didn't interrupt my candidate while they were talking. Y'all need to know this was hard because I wanted to jump in and have a conversation, but I didn't want to do anything that, seemed like I was being unbalanced. And I really did enjoy just listening to you guys answer the questions. All right. You get 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Hold on. Let me set my timer. And you can go ahead and give your closing statement and go.
Okay. Well, first, let me say congratulations to you for being very disciplined in making sure that the conversation was balanced. I understand, and I really respect and admire what you've done here tonight for both of us. I won't take 90 seconds because I've said a lot. Todd Rokita is not serving Indiana, and it's not only a missed opportunity for the people of Indiana to have a lawyer who is focused on them and the things that they need, but he is doing things that are hurting people. And as most bullies do, he is hurting vulnerable people, trans kids who just want health care, children who are the victims of abuse and rape, doctors who are just doing their jobs and serving their patients. It's unacceptable, and I'm tired of it, and I can't sit by and watch it happen. I have been a public servant, elected and appointed official, done much work in all spheres of government. I will be an effective Attorney General for the people of Indiana, and I really hope I get the opportunity. Thanks.
All right. I love it. And she had 30 seconds left. Wow. Beth, will you hang on? Don't hang up just yet. I need to do some closeout with you before you hang up. But guys, how lucky are we? I don't know about you, but I feel like our Democratic Party, with our leadership and the candidates that we have on the ballot, we are in good hands. But here's the thing. You have to help, right? We can't complain about Todd Rokita and not actually get out and vote for whoever the delegates choose. The line between Destiny and Beth is not, we're going to be good on policy, right? We're going to be good on policy. But here's the deal. Time, talent, or treasure. In fact, I love the question that I asked. What had they both been doing for the last few cycles to help Democrats? They both had very different answers, but they were very needed resources. Where Destiny was giving you time and talent, Beth was giving you more money, the treasure. She was giving you the treasure. So all of those things are necessary for us to support our candidates, right? We know that something they both said that I wasn't even aware of. They both said we needed to return the office back to dignity. Apparently, people don't like working for Todd Rokita. If we don't have good attorneys in the Attorney General's office, then what the heck's going on? Then all we can do is sign on to frivolous, lawsuits to stop gay people, me people from getting health care without discrimination. Right? Can you imagine? Why is that even a thing? Why would you even have a problem with that? But guys, also, if you can, pick a candidate. There are links there in the information, both Destiny's link and Beth's link. Could you maybe sign up to be a recurring donor for the candidate that comes out? Give some money now and then give some money after July 13th. And let's help these candidates. Let's galvanize behind them, because they're going to need all of us to help them win this election. This was a first for me, guys. Maybe next time I will be brave enough to do a debate, but I just don't think my ADD kicks in and I'll get in a debate with them. So that wouldn't be good. That just wouldn't be good, right? But this was fun. And we got to hear from both of our candidates. Now you have 2 weeks, delegates, to review this information, review those answers, and then decide for yourself which of these candidates you want to represent you on the ballot in November. If you have other questions that you would like answered that I did not ask, send them to me. I will be more than happy to share them with the candidates, and I'm certain they wouldn't have a problem with answering them, and then I would disseminate them out to you. I will be the point of contact for you guys, all the listeners out there that may have questions for our candidates. But it was a pleasure to do this for the first time, and I hope I get to do it again in the next election in 2022. Maybe I can get some more primary opponents on at the same time so we can hear about them, and then you can make your selection. Oh my God, I'm a little high right now because it was so dope, and these women energized me. By the way, two women. It seems like Republicans don't like to put women on their ticket. I'm just saying, we got what, 4 women right now at the top of the ticket, with Valerie McCrae, Jennifer McCormick, and both Destiny and Beth. We love our women on this side. That other side, they want to tell you as women, you can't control your body. So we have an opportunity to change Indiana, but it's going to take us to turn out and show up and show out. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Turn Left tonight. Again, I'm going to take the live feed down, and then I will direct you all to the YouTube and Spotify. Please click subscribe on either one of those so that you will never miss another episode of Turn Left, because I am trying to bring you the information you need to make the sound decisions about our citizen government. Next week is the 4th of July next week. So there's no show next week, right? And then the following week, I will be at Netroots. So there will be 2 weeks of no show. So you guys have 2 weeks to listen to this. And then don't forget to check out the Mary Noon episode that I did, where we talked about how we reach voters and how candidates can win elections. Okay. So there's enough content out there for you right now for you to get engaged. But I will catch y'all on the next episode. I'll holla. Peace. Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions. Executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by www.bensound.com.